Hey y'all, Andrew Reed, Mossy Creek Mushrooms, back for round two. Sorry about that. Apparently we've got some bad weather across the country, and Samantha was looking at it. There are YouTube servers that are crashing and whatnot through some of this, but
It lives
it
again.
does. It lives again. I've always played the undead when I can play the undead. So,
Well, and I was just sitting there thinking, this is becoming our signature move.
yep. Oh yeah. So, and then there's the ghost of Charles. Yeah, he'll be back shortly. He decided to go walk a dog. So,
Walk his puppy.
yep. But we are back. Hopefully things are smooth. Yeah, we're back on.
Okay.
Hopefully things are going to be smoothed out. Just to kind of recapture, because this is going to be one of those things where when this goes to a video, I'm going to get like 14,000 people getting on and being like, hey, this started out of nowhere. So we'll just recapture or go back in time. Yeah. I'm Andrew Reed with Moss Creek Mushrooms. Joining me as always is my ever lovely wife, Samantha Reed. And joining us tonight is Charles Batty. Which we've kind of... Oh. Is that mine? Oh,
I got it.
Okay.
I got it. That was my bad.
All good. So, as we were saying earlier, I've known Charles a very long time, good friend and all that. I've known him since 6th grade. And then we were just discussing how tonight's topic, stewardship, is actually stemming in part because Charles allowed us to read his upcoming, which I guess actually went out yesterday, so it's no longer upcoming, but his essay on stewardship. And I just really think that stewardship can be applied at multiple levels, and it's near and dear to my heart. I think it can apply to us very strongly as mushroom farmers, and how we fit into how we run our businesses and work with our families and provide for our families, and how we fit into the environmental picture. I think there's a lot of levels to this, and it's a subject that I was kind of raised with to be a good steward. So, since we are back and doing, re-upping this real quick, Charles, you have anything you want to re-say?
So I was out of the room, and I'll ask forgiveness.
All good.
Are we redoing from the very beginning?
We basically just had to restart real quick.
Okay.
And so since we lost a few minutes, it can be shorter.
Sure,
because,
that's fine. So it sounds like we have a number of the same folks, but we're going to repeat some of what we said in order to do it for posterity. So, my name's Charles Batty. I've been involved with Mossy Creek Mushrooms from the very beginning, and historically I've been a silent partner, but more recently I've gotten involved in the day-to-day working with Samantha in production, and I actually have been working with Ben Erickson on the Man-O-War side of things, which is technically a separate entity, but has a lot of overlap, and it's in the same facility as well. So if you've bought a Thor bagger in the past 6 months, I probably either built most, if not all of it, depending on which particular unit it was. I have been writing for much of my life, and in the past year or so I've been working on developing a portfolio with the goal of being a professional writer. And so Andrew and Samantha and I have talked about stewardship as a concept for years, and it's a challenging, kind of nuanced issue with a lot of potential. And so I was able to finally sit down and put together an essay kind of beginning the conversation in a more formal sense, and I released that essay yesterday. So
and that can be the link to that can be found in the description.
Yes. So I write, my website is called themastyear.com. That's TheMastyear. And that's where I publish all my writing. And so today we're going to be using my essay as kind of the backbone of our conversation.
Absolutely. And then, Samantha, is there anything... Are we good on the chat? Is it smoother this time? I mean, how are we doing?
Seems to be.
Awesome.
So.
Great. So maybe they figured out their issues and they've got us going smooth. Well, we already... shot the shit earlier, so I guess really what I would do then is we'll go into the stewardship intro, We were just diving into the topic a little bit and about what stewardship. I guess I'll start with what it means to me, and then we can kind of go around the table and see what other people's thoughts are. But of course, with all the distractions tonight, I'm not actually 100% on topic in my head. So I'll do my best, and maybe later on, if we do a round table where we're bouncing things back and forth, if anything comes back, I can bring that back. But I feel like I was raised separately than the other two here at the table with the idea of stewardship. It was brought to me with a very different angle. I was raised very religious, and so most of my stewardship ideals and thoughts, I guess, like early formations, come really with that in mind. You know, in the New Testament, there's the parable of the servants. There's or the parable of the talents. And sorry, Charles was trying to see him, but then not mess with me, and then it messed with me. But
Typical.
you have the parable of the talents where the master leaves, and then he's got these three servants, and the first servant is left with something like, I can't remember the allegory exactly, but it's like he's left with 4 talents, and whenever I'm not going to. But the idea is that he's left with more, and the next guy's left with less, and the next guy's left with even less. And the only one who is thought of as evil when the master comes back is the one who did nothing, who did not take care of or grow the investment or anything like that. And so, for me, I guess that there's with stewardship, it's not just about taking care of things, but continuing to advance things. It's also, the idea behind stewardship is that you don't own what you are holding, what you're caring for. And so you have to think of it more in terms of like, if somebody lends me something, I have to return it in better shape than what it was given to me in. To me, that's kind of like what stewardship's about. If I take that to a family level, a business level, or an environmental level, that's kind of where stewardship falls to me. So it's one of the reasons I feel like why I have fallen in love with the idea of mushroom farms as soil generators, right? As we're seeing topsoil erosion across the country, across the world. We're seeing a loss of biodiversity. I feel like as stewards, we humans have not always hit the mark well. And I think that we can do better pretty much at any level to kind of take stewardship a little bit more seriously in our lives. Yeah, I guess that's a good brief summation for me. So I come from it from a very different angle. Again, like the religious upbringing. What was it? God gave man dominion over the earth. Dominion to me has never meant an oppressive force, but more of a caretaker position. So that's kind of where I roll with it. Samantha, what do you got? What do you think of when it comes to, stewardship?
You guys are getting all philosophical on me.
well, again, then to say it your way, like, right? Like if mine's more of that angle, let's hear yours.
Well, I guess if we're kind of sharing a little bit about how we personally see it, I know I've been a huge art fan all of my life, and at one point I even wanted to be someone who did restoration, and so there's this idea of individuals that put their heart and soul in these things and they pass it on to future generations, and then as well as a mother and as a wife and as a friend, as a daughter-in-law and everything else.
Business owner.
And a business owner. Everything in my realm of influence is something that I'm a steward of, and so I try to take great care to make sure that everything around me is well taken care of and happy. And like I just made smoothies for everyone before I came in here.
There we go.
But just, happy bellies, happy. They're cheersing over here. But in my role as someone who fulfills orders, each package goes out, and I try to take great care because it's traveling in the mail, and you guys are going to take what comes from here and further it and be good stewards of it on your farm, and it, as a business, we have a large role in maintaining our library and making sure that it's maintained with integrity, and there's that too. But I mean, this whole episode is going to be about stewardship, so there's definitely much to be said about it. And if it were up to me, there'd be a part 2, 3, and 4. So
Yeah, maybe there will be.
I think that's up to the audience.
yeah, well, there's
fair.
that too.
I see, and that's another thing I would like to. Oh my gosh! Okay, I've got like 2 things real quick. So Samantha, you mentioned motherhood, and it really hit me all of a sudden that we don't own our kids. It's kind of weird. Like we do.
No, I've got something good for that.
Do you?
Keep going.
Okay,
keep going.
good. Like it's not in like maybe we own their education. We own the right to take care of them, to steward them, to do these things. But you're right. I mean, eventually they will grow old beyond our control, I guess, beyond our domain, and that's a good point. Like each of us becomes a link in the chain, and each one of us is steward for the next. Do you want me to go ahead and
I want to tell my thing about children whenever you're done.
with the children? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a guy named Khalil Gibran who wrote a book called The Prophet. I'm not sure how old it is. He was from Lebanon. It's at least a little bit before our time. And it's got a bunch of just sort of like, they're almost little songs. They're more like the kind of thing that you would find in, well, speaking of songs, they're almost like psalms, like from the Bible. But anyway, he's got one that's called On Children, and it begins by saying, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not of you." This is incorrect. Sorry. They come through you, but they are not of you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. And then it goes on, and it's a really, really good thing. I was just looking it up real quick, and this translation is kind of funky, so I'm not going to keep reading it because it's got errors in it, and it'll confuse me. But that's the general gist of it, is this idea of your children don't belong to you. Your job is, in fact, to steward them like Samantha's talking about, like Andrew's talking about. And if you have the time, go and check out this book, The Prophet, because that's one of many very, very good things that he has to say about like every topic that's important to life: money and parenting and violence and peace and love and all this stuff. And frankly, this is a really good book as a primer on stewardship too. Frankly, he's already done a better job than I could ever do. So read The Prophet and don't even read my work.
Fair enough.
Andrew had a second thing to say, though.
I actually don't remember what the second thing was. That's okay.
Well, if you don't, I've got one more thing to go back a step.
Well, real quick, I will say Bad Tentacles is saying is teaching a form of stewardship, and I would say that, yeah, I mean...
Well, it looks like
anything-
Chris Kennedy answered him and said it's giving back knowledge.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would think, is that you're stewarding the education
So,
of people.
something that we'll talk about a fair bit today, but in my idea, stewardship is you could think of it as foundational. It's a mindset kind of thing. And so it's principled and it's abstract and it's not domain dependent. And so you can then take these ideas and you can apply them to whatever your domain is. So the answer to the question of is teaching a form of stewardship, well, it depends on if you have a stewardship attitude.
Yeah.
Because you can teach in a way that's oppressive. You can teach in a way that basically comes in and says, I have the right answer and you must conform to my right answer. And if you don't conform to my right answer, you're wrong and you're bad. And that's not at all carrying a stewardship attitude. But you could also go into this with a totally different attitude, and then you could make your teaching a form of stewardship. And so I think it really is, it's a very domain independent, philosophical sort of thing. And it allows you, if you kind of take this principally, you can embody this and then you can live it. And that's what I'm really going to be talking about later on. Is my goal in writing this essay is to try to start working my way down the path towards this being less abstract and less of an idea and more of a thing that you do, a thing that you live. And being able to do it means you have to be able to articulate it. And that's the hard part.
It really is, yeah. I mean, when we first started broaching this, I had an inkling or an instinctive idea of what a steward was, but I did not have a good articulation.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the nature. That's the nature of any idea, and that's the difference between an idea and a lifestyle, or an idea and I don't know. So let me go back one step, because you guys were talking about this a minute ago. You were both talking about your ideas of stewardship, and the both of you together showed me. I had this perfect vision, right? So Andrew's talking about stewardship in context of his faith, and Samantha's talking about stewardship in context of her art. And I'm thinking about the cathedrals that were built in the medieval period, where they took multiple generations to build these things, and you had people who literally began these things, who designed them knowing they would never see them come to fruition. And I think that's a great example of stewardship, and that's something that you don't see a lot of in the world we live in now, where like some of it's technological, where we can build stuff so fast that it's like, well, what's the point in building a multi-generational project? But on the other hand, I miss it. Like, I don't miss it because I never saw it in the first place, but I feel like I wish there was this sort of thing existed in our world, where you had these projects that I could walk, like I would go on a pilgrimage in this day and age to see
multi-generational project,
a thing that had been started years and years ago and wasn't getting finished in my lifetime. If I could just go and like actually see that in process, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that reminds me, actually, sadly, of when that cathedral burned.
Oh, you're talking about Notre Dame?
Yeah.
So there's a cool story in that, though.
Is there?
So once upon a time, when they used to build these cathedrals, they used to plant forests, and they had stewards of those forests. They had steward foresters, right? They didn't probably call them that, but that's what they were. And their job was to maintain.
I kind of like that idea of being a job.
Well, they were maintaining these trees. So these cathedrals need they have very specific requirements for their timber. They need to be a certain size. They can't be too old, too young. They have to be straight and tall and strong and all that stuff. And growing trees in that way requires a person who has the skill to grow them properly. And so what they would do is they would plant trees when they began these cathedrals. And then over the years, they would continually replant new trees, so that as time went by, and if bad things happened, like fire or like just the slow aging of these things, they would have replacement timbers ready to go. Well, so Notre Dame had been around for so long, and the world had changed so much that the forests that were once planted for Notre Dame aren't there any longer. And so they're like, holy crap, what are we going to do? Well, it turns out there was another forest, and that other forest, they were like, hey, we've got these trees that will suit the need for Notre Dame. And so it was like a relic. Like people don't do this anymore much, but there was like this one spot where they still do, and they're like, we'll be happy to we'll fulfill. I mean, I'm sure they made money. I mean, like, I'm not trying to say they shouldn't have, because they put in the effort, but there was an actual very specialized thing available, even though the
need for it was almost...
Well, even though the tradition had been damaged, right? There used to be a tradition that just went along with this, and the tradition's no longer there, and so in this case, they found somebody who was carrying the tradition on.
I will say, too, though, watching the chat, Bad Tentacle said, well, we do see that in the space industry still today. And I guess that's an interesting idea, is that the space industry has gone on for multiple generations so far.
Okay, I dig that. That's a good point.
And maybe slowly and in steps, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing a passing of the torch, I feel like, now. So I can see that, but yeah, there aren't very many others that...
I think it's a really good call, that the space industry definitely has been evolving. It's a little bit less tangible than walking up and touching a cathedral in process, but I can see the parallel there. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So I mean, like, you know, it's something like I've talked about for a long time. I wanted to go watch a rocket launch. I hadn't even really thought of it in that kind of.
I've seen them. My grandparents used to have a place down in Florida, and we used to go to, was it Canaveral?
Yep.
So I've seen one or two from the outskirts. Obviously, we weren't really close because it'll blind you.
Yeah, they have like specialized areas you can go to if you want to get closer. But even then, yeah, I've always wanted to, even from afar, I'd like to see one. So.
Well, and I mentioned Ben Erickson earlier. So Ben is personally very plugged in to the space thing as a whole idea. And so we have a group chat, and he always texts when there's launches happening.
Yeah,
And I won't even know because I live in this very, very insular bubble. Like, I don't even know that there's, like, I didn't even know there was bad weather except at the laundromat. And they're like, yeah, there's this, crazy storm coming. And I live in a camper, and I probably should know this stuff, and I don't. But Ben's like, hey, there's a launch happening, and I'll pop over and watch it. And that's a cool thing. And it's nice to have the people in our lives who are plugged in on that.
Oh yeah, well, and Ben has gone and taken a pilgrimage down there, but he also he told us about the Vulcan Lunch, and then told me today, he's like, dude, I completely forgot about it. I was like working on some baggers or some bagger parts, and he forgot about it.
We've all been very busy lately.
Well, he was like, and this was like one of the first times that a first launch of a system went perfectly, and he missed this like perfect first launch of a system. So, but anyways. Getting off the topic, I know.
Yeah, we can bring it back to stewardship. So this is about the time in the show when I'm going to give you guys kind of like my quick and dirty breakdown on my essay and kind of just give you the real crash course of the ideas. And then I'm going to kind of open up and kind of facilitate some conversation with Andrew and Samantha. Before I do, I think Andrew has something he would like you to watch.
Oh, yeah. We'll just go for a real quick sponsor plug. Guess who it is? We're back. So, Charles is going to give you his rundown.
I was just seeing if you were looking at me.
I am.
Welcome to the amateur hour. All right, so I want to read to you something that I wrote at the sort of the front end of my essay to give some context. And so we'll start with that, and then I'll fill you in on the details. So for a bit more than 10 years now, I have been consciously constructing my life. Little things like not keeping junk food in the house, big things like running a small business that routinely said no to jobs that didn't match up with my values, countless in-between things like structuring my habits in accordance with my goals, paying attention to how I spend my time, paying attention to how I speak to other people, paying attention to how I speak to myself, paying attention to how I present myself. The list goes on. For a long time, I've wanted to develop a coherent philosophy of how to live a good life. And for a long time, I've found that project to be too intimidating to even begin. So this is my first attempt at developing a framework of a moral philosophy and subsequent principles by which to live. It isn't all-encompassing, and it isn't complete, and it never will be, but it's a start. So that's the inspiration. Now, first thing I'll do is give you my definition of a steward. And this is a functional definition. It's not a complete definition. Pretty much everything that I say today is going to be functional and not complete. So just bear that in mind. This is a work in progress. But for the sake of the tonight, a steward is a person who is responsible for the care of a household that he does not own. And then beyond that, I have three broad categories that I'm kind of calling core principles, but I don't really like that terminology because it doesn't feel quite that refined yet. But those three broad categories that we're going to try to work within tonight are maintenance first, as in maintenance of existing infrastructure first before going after building new infrastructure. Additionally, any new infrastructure cannot come at the expense of the existing infrastructure. And so this idea of you don't own the home, you don't own the household, you don't own the business, you don't own the country, you don't own the whatever, is you inherit something and you aren't authorized to dispose of it however you will. And so your job, first and foremost, is to maintain what you inherited. And then secondarily, you can build, you can refine, you can do whatever, but you can't just throw away the thing that isn't yours to throw away. The second thing is an emphasis on preparation as opposed to an emphasis on protection. Now, we'll kind of dig in deeper on that later, so I'm going to probably leave that alone for right now because I think it kind of speaks for itself. And then the third thing is an orientation of your actions to the process rather than orientation of your actions towards the goal. So the idea here is you will have a goal. You'll work backwards from your goal and say, what actions would I need to take on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in order to get to that goal? And then you set that goal up on a shelf and you focus on the actions and you focus on the process. And there's a particular reason why I think this is important to stewardship, because this idea of being process oriented allows you to be really conscious of if your actions are having unintended consequences, and then B, it allows you to gauge the sacrifices that you're making and make sure that they are appropriate. Make sure you're not sacrificing things that you shouldn't be sacrificing. You know, we live in a culture that's very future focused and hardly past focused at all. And I know I have been very guilty of sacrificing my well-being and happiness in the present for some like promise of a future that may never come. And so that's what I kind of am alluding to when I say appropriate sacrifice. I want to see more. I think that a good steward won't sacrifice the well-being of the present for some future thing. Especially the good steward won't sacrifice his inherited wealth, whatever that institution, whatever that money, whatever it is. Frankly, being born into America is inherited wealth, right? We have these institutions all around us that make life smooth that don't exist in other countries. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say inherited wealth. It doesn't mean just cash. So that's kind of topic number 3. And do either one of you have any feedback on that? You mean I can jump right into asking my questions?
Samantha?
I would argue being born even in less than ideal circumstances, you inherit a specific wealth and the knowledge of how to grow through hardships. So there's that too, kind of on the opposite end of that. But that was my only thought on that one.
I like that, and I agree. And I'm glad that you said that, because when I say inheritance, I feel like that's a bit of a loaded term. I think that some people will jump straight to money. And this is where I'm trying to reframe the language towards institutions. And what Samantha's talking about is culture, right? So you're born into a family that has no money, but you've got a hardworking culture, or you've got a culture of being thankful for what you have. Or frankly, maybe you're not even born into that, but you live hard and you learn, and then you inherit that opportunity. I mean, like, there's a very positive-minded, optimistic kind of like this notion of there's an opportunity in everything. In what I think I hear that in what you're saying, Samantha.
Specifically, what comes to mind in part is that there's a specific tribe, and forgive me, I've forgotten the name of it. But they essentially partner with birds to help hunt for honey, and they teach that and pass that on. They hunt for honey with the birds. And
they follow the bee hunting birds, Yeah,
and then the birds, they have offspring, and those offspring learn to work with the offspring of their forefathers, and it's really cool. I really like it.
I have never heard of this, but it sounds awesome.
It's a thing.
Awesome.
It's a thing.
It is super cool. I don't guess I really have any thoughts on that right now. We can go into questions.
All right. So my first question is going to be for Samantha. And I want to lead it off. So in my essay, each section is opened with an aphorism, little sort of snippet that I direction. So
how very Frank Herbert of you.
Well, it's, there are many people who have used aphorisms, but yes, the Frank Herbert chapter headings definitely inspired me. So if you guys haven't read Dune, I'll tell you that the book Dune has had a really significant shaping impact on all of our lives, frankly. So we've definitely done a lot of talk about Dune over the years. But so the aphorism for the maintenance section is as follows: you own nothing. Everything you have, you hold in trust, as it was held in trust before you. You carry a debt to the past and a duty to the future. So with that aphorism in mind, my first question is for Samantha, and I want to ask her to tell us, What can you tell us about putting maintenance first in your experience of running a mushroom farm?
It's everything. Absolutely everything. For example, we had to change the element out on the boiler yesterday, and we kind of pushed our cooks, and I should have already changed it and didn't, and then we had to pay the price later. So just everything from spore to absolute finish is maintenance. All the way down from making sure that everything is wiped down, everything is clean, doing your daily, kind of harkening back to last week's episode, doing your daily checks and your weekly checks and hourly checks and all of those as well. So how in depth are you wanting me to go in this?
Go as deep as you
Because I
want.
can go forever.
We're in the mushroom section now, so I want to get us out of the abstract and out of my essay and into the mushroom business, because that's what your viewers are here to talk about, is mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go as specific as you want, and Andrew, jump in, and then I've got some thoughts already.
And overall, we've these are conversations that we have behind the scenes that we really wanted to come in together, and hopefully Ben can join us sometime soon in the future. But we have good conversations, and they're fun and wholesome and awesome conversations, and they really propel us forward in our business as well as in our friendships and in our personal lives. And stewardship it's a huge one. Andrew went and checked the humidifiers today, and I focused on the boiler yesterday, and we did the autoclave and all the cooking this morning or last night, and then this morning again. So everything is this cascade, and if you miss one point, something else is going to suffer. And so it's important to go and make sure that you do your maintenance checks, and infrastructure. I wish Ben were here. Infrastructure is an amazing thing too. Do your maintenance on all of your infrastructure, but then do your biological maintenance. Andrew is really good at that, and then so on and so forth.
Well, speaking of infrastructure, we were talking about this the other day, but when you guys first moved into this warehouse, the warehouse was not yet fit to use. Mm-mm. So, this is an interesting twist on what I'm trying to say, because you guys inherited, in a certain sense, a facility that you couldn't use. And you could have jumped right into the new and built out your own operation and ignored the maintenance of this base facility. But, there were doors that couldn't close and all manner of whatever stuff. And so before you could even begin building out the mushroom operation, you actually had to repair the facility that you're renting.
Yeah, our landlord, in fact, when we first looked at this space, there was a bay door that it looked like it had been ripped to shreds, like someone had tried to break in. And one of the things that he asked was, do you want me to fix this? Do you want me to tear this out and replace it? What do you want me to do? And we were like, okay, just tear out the bay door. We don't actually need, a fourth bay door, and then just brick it up. And we came in the next day and he had it done. And it has been nice inheriting a building with someone who's the landlord over it, who cares enough to put in the maintenance. But he didn't know exactly what we needed. But once we started kind of sharing our vision with him, he was very quick to fix things. And we came in and we were very quick to clean up and fix things as well. We tore down a wall. It's been a lot. And then Ben and Keith, bless him. But we all came in and we put a lot of time into building this shell that is the Great Hall and the grow room and incubation, and now the podcast room. And this building has seen a lot of really good memories.
I remember I put on my climbing harness and installed the water systems in the rafters.
Yep.
He did. And then we had a really cold winter where our dentist's office, all of our pipes, everyone's pipes busted because East Tennessee, we weren't used to that cold of a weather. And
they're saying that's what we're getting for the next couple of weeks too.
Well, we have PEX pipes now, so bring it. But anyway,
hey,
it's
don't go talking bad about the weather. It hears you.
Yeah, right.
It hears you.
It hears you. But yeah, it's a thing.
Andrew,
What was the question?
Well, so I'm gonna. That's okay.
I feel like we've gotten far
No,
enough.
I've got you your own question because
Okay.
those of you who know Andrew know that Andrew love the maintenance.
No. No.
Andrew doesn't love the maintenance.